We're looking at a very important topic this morning, talking about the issue of outsourcing and, of course, the underpayment of the pains of Nigeria contract workers. According to the report by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, in 2023, about 65% of the banking sector workforce are contract staff. If you go to the oil and gas sector, of course, contract employees reportedly are earning less, far less than their counterparts who are permanent staff. If you look at the percentage, 50 to 70% less in their full time. In less than in terms of their payment, the allowances being paid to the company, theirs is about 50 to 6% less compared to the permanent staff, even though some of them did say that their job is even more tedious and more riskier than the permanent employees. How do we address this conversation? Labour has done quite a whole lot of advocacy in this regard. We also have the Consumer Protection Council talking about FCCPC also trying their best on how to get to find solution to all this problem, but it still persists. There's a compliance issue there in the system. I'm being joined in the studio to look at this very critical topic by Benson Upah. Benson Upah is the head of information and publicity at the Nigerian Labour Congress. He joins us right here in the studio. Good morning, Mr. Benson.
Good morning.
All right. Mr. Benson is joined on the show by Aliyu. Ilias is an economist and also a financial analyst. There he is also one who is so concerned about the issue of Consumer Protection Council. Good morning, Mr. Ilias.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's go into this topic. Let me start with you, Mr. Ilias. This is a major concern. When you have 65% of the banking sector workforce, as contract staff, what does that tell you?
Right, it's quite appalling. If you look at the definition of outsourcing itself, it's contracting out of your major legal activities. So when you are contracting out your legal activities, what are you actually bringing? And if you look at the pains of outsourcing, it's myriad. In fact, it have economic issue, it have personal issue, and it have business related issue. Let's go to the banking that you mentioned. If you look at banks, if you go to most cashier at the bank, or we call them teller, because the majority of them are actually casual. And how do they casualize them? They actually employ them with third party, and the third party will now say you are going to work for 2 years. After 2 years, it is subject to renewal. And by the time they renew you 5 times, that is 10 years, they'll say you cannot work here again. And there is a disadvantage to outsourcing in terms of labor. The first one is that there's what is called overhead cost. That simply means that organization will not pay overhead cost. A good example is security. You know, the security, like in my estate, the security there have been paid 50,000, right from the estate, but the employee are actually paying them 25,000 naira. Do you see the major gap? So and they don't have overhead costs. There's nothing like health related support. There's nothing like maybe accidents compensation.
No medical bills.
No medical bills. No overhead costs whatsoever, and it's a legal robbery from the major company because they are actually avoiding those costs, which is a problem. So I would think it's a problem, is a gap in law. There's a lacuna in our labor law that we need to look at critically because we should not allow them to actually practice that. And it's also an economic sabotage. People are performing, but they are paying very, very low, and it affects their purchasing power, and overall, it affects economic output of Nigeria.
Indeed, that's a very good start there, Mr. Ilias. Mr. Benson, in the oil and gas sector, and this is not limited to the oil and gas sector or the banking sector alone. I'm looking at a fact from the CIBN. They did say that in the oil and gas sector, contract employees reportedly earn 50 to 70% less than their full-time counterparts, even when they are performing equally demanding or even riskier responsibilities. How do we address this?
Well, I think it is important for us to distinguish between casualization and outsourcing. Section 7, subsection 1 of the Labour Act describes or prescribes that the process of formalization of anybody employed in any kind of work should be completed within 3 months. Okay? That if you employ somebody and within 3 months you fail to issue a letter of employment, other duties, responsibilities, obligations, privileges clearly stated. If you fail to do that, you are acting in breach of Section 7, subsection 1 of the Labour Act. And there is a proposal, or there is a proposed amendment pending the formalization of that proposal. And that proposal is saying that if you run foul of this section of the law, you'll be liable to pay a fine of not more than 2 million or 2 years in prison, or both. This is a proposed amendment. Quite often times there's a tendency to mix casualization and outsourcing. Outsourcing, on the other hand, is recognized by law, and the National Industrial Court has made affirmative pronouncements in this regard. But it is important to explain this. You don't go outsourcing tasks or jobs when you can ordinarily employ. Issues of skills, unique skills that are not readily available within the system, could be the issues that may lead to outsourcing. But in a situation whereby those skills, those capacities are readily available, and you go outsourcing, what you're doing is that you are actually, in effect, casualizing. And you are running foul of the law. And the law should take its course. Okay? So what has happened is that quite a number of employers have taken advantage of this situation. They have taken advantage of the fact that there are more applicants than jobs available. They have taken advantage of the fact that the Ministry of Labour, that is supposed to play an oversight role in this matter, is not doing enough. At the level of NLC, right from when NLC returned, as from 99, year 1999, Comrade Adams Oshomole was unequivocal about this. He caused to be formed an anti-casualization campaign committee that worked through night and day and rolled back the lost ground. At the moment, we still have anti-casualization campaign committee, and we're working. Okay.
All right. If you see that there is the Labour Act that also mandates fair wages and decent working conditions, but there seems to be weak in terms of enforcement.
Well, we should deal with this matter from its root. And what I mean by this is that it should not even be possible ordinarily. It should not be possible, or it should not have been possible for employers to just violate this law if those who are supposed to be the vanguards of this law are up and doing. Okay? Why would you, a job that can be performed by you and I, why would you outsource it? One of the conditions for lawful outsourcing is that skill is unique. It's not readily available in our community. So you look where you can get it. And the task to be performed is a one-off thing. Okay? It's not something which you do every day.
All right.
So we should, to me, we should start from the root.
All right.
And hold to account those who are supposed to implement this law. Okay? Section, I've just talked about Section 7, subsection 1, and there are issues of fair wages that you brought out here, because it's not even, this matter goes beyond the body of our labor law. Okay? Because what in effect the employers are doing is discrimination. And our constitution is emphatic about this, that no citizen, no one should be discriminated against.
All right.
Okay? So why you and I are doing the same kind of job? I am paid less, you are paid more. And in your introductory remarks, you did say that I possibly could be doing more work than you, or more hazardous work than you. Yet I am paid less. I am not even on your staff list. Possibly I'm not on your staff list. So these issues, we need to take them on a holistic basis and trash them right from employment, the basis of employment or non-employment, to wages, and appropriately deal with this. Yes.
All right, that is an interesting one. Mr. Ilias, he talked about issue of outsourcing, that if there is a job, if you have a competent hands that can handle the job, there is no point outsourcing the job. Is it out of place to bring in somebody who may be outside of the company? Because what we see in some instances is the fact that some companies outsource their recruitment to other companies to help them recruit for that company. Is it out of place for company to handle its responsibilities?
Right. Like I said earlier, I tried to discuss outsourcing, and he has actually shed more light on casualization. But if you look at, like you rightly said, outsourcing simply means you want to take your legal activities to third party. Now, the third party you are giving it to, you are actually running from some responsibility. And the major bone of contention here is that the condition of service for the outsourced person informed us that this is actually casualization. So on an ideal basis, what is the right, what is the conditionalities that will make you to outsource? Like you said, professionalism. So let's go to some of these artisans or even bankers. Are you saying that the bank itself cannot actually employ directly the teller or the cashier that need to outsource to the person? They're actually running from the benefits those people will derive from working from them. And like pension. Pension is one of the number one. How can you employ people that do not have rights to pension?
Is it exploitation, so to say?
It's exploitation, and the target is that they want to make more profit. They don't want to pay more. They want to avoid overhead costs. And that's what I said there's a law. There's a gap that's actually not stemming such attitude. There should be a way, maybe Ministry of Labor, that will make maybe a register of who actually work and look into what they actually are benefiting. The case in hand that actually explode all this, that brings about, is the case of the oil company that Labor is actually trying to put to size. And we are fully in support of that, because you cannot casualize even for Canaiza. You cannot casualize and outsource common people that will fix what we have abundance of it in it. So I think it's exploitative in nature. And like I said, it has economic effects on even every household that is doing it. Because you know why? By the time you are casualized, for the first 2 years, they will say you reapply. I don't know if you've seen people who have experience. You will reapply again. After that, by the time you reapply 5 times, they will tell you that you cannot work with them again. You must have expended your active year of service in that area without other burden. And like you rightly said, it's because there's shortage of work. we just want to do anything that is available, and it's affecting us.
But then NBS will disagree with you that our unemployment rate is just around 4%.
You know, I'm an economist. The methodology is actually wrong, because the methodology said that if you have worked for 1 hour in a week, you are employed. That is a contradiction. We won't agree with that. I think that's just but the bone of the matter is that anything that has to do with casual, I can tell you, when I was in Lagos, I actually work in an area called Isolo, and we have to do what we call casual jobs. So what we do is that in the morning, we line up in our streets, they bring a kind of vehicle to convey us. By the time you enter that company, there is this thing they used to roll down. They roll it down, you entered, you will not go out until 5. In fact, they are going to feed you inside. And my experience is this. I discovered that there was a day I was there, and I saw somebody, they are rushing the person out. And what is happening? Blood was oozing down. And what happened is that the person has suffered work injury. And that injury, I finally asked, they said its wrist cut off. And I wonder how they're going to capture. And at that time, they said they were competing with only 200,000. In fact, I have to leave the work. You know why I have to leave the work? I now say, I am complete. How well have I even helped myself? Let alone train off. And I saw others. In fact, the people, I don't want to mention their name, they have to come to me and say, you work, me pay. No, they can't speak very well. They're telling me that if I didn't work, they will not pay me. And they told me that I will not come back to their work. But I was surprised. If I'm this age like this, I would have taken them to court. And it's still happening. People are being subject to those work-based injury. And you remember, federal government has also made, we have ITF, Industrial Training Fund. It's actually for such thing. But if you don't register under them, you may not benefit. We also have NSITF, social insurance. All these things are not capped. So these people are there and nobody is monitoring them. So we lack that monitoring, maybe from Ministry of Labour. There's need to do more to actually make sure that Nigerians are being catered to.
Indeed, very important. And Mr. Benson, this is in your court now. I mean, like he really mentioned, there are some foreign companies in Nigeria who are exploiting Nigerians. There are some places they have their vehicles, they take their staff in the morning. Once they get into the premises of the company, there is no going out of that premises,
no access to your phone,
no access to any other thing until you close from work the next day. It's more like being enslaved in your own country. What is Labour doing about that kind of situation? It's happening, it's recurring almost every day.
One of the reasons you find us in the trenches is that matter. Beyond fair wages is the issue of health and safety at workplace. It is one of our key concerns. It is one of the pillars of decent work. We have been championing what we call decent work, the cost of decent work in this country. It goes beyond the salary you earn to the safety and conditions around what you do. He talked about the loss of a limb.
A fellow worker.
Yes. For instance, how much, what compensation could be adequate enough for such a person? Perhaps a young person with his or her life ahead of him or her. But we have recorded worse situations.
Absolutely.
Some losing their capacity to procreate. Yes. You find some young people, because they've worked in certain conditions, other certain conditions, they cannot make babies. There's nothing you can do about that for life. Except now with the advent of technology, they can patch things up and the person may make a baby. But how many people can afford that?
Absolutely, yes.
So now, what is Labour doing about this? We have been fighting, and we have faced the police in particular, tear gas, time and time again over issues like this. But we couldn't, in fact, facing the police would have been avoided. It would have been an avoidable matter if the Minister of Labour had done the needful.
Absolutely.
is there in their schedule of duty to send inspectors to these factories, to these sweatshops, we call them sweatshops, to go check what is going on. But oftentimes, at the Ministry of Labor, we complain about budget, resources to go and inspect. And even when the resources are there, they look for other reasons. They look the other way. As a result of this, we proposed in the amendment to the labor law that we should also be part of this inspection. That it's not only Minister of Labor now that should go for inspections. Labor, Nigeria Labour Congress, TUC, and another party that is desirous to be part of this inspection should go there so that we minimize the tragedy going on. Okay? Because what workers are going through is unspeakable. It is hell. And you know, funnily, the government of the country is also complicit. This is how they are complicit. When negotiating for foreign direct investment, sometimes they do not mention the fact that
some say they don't even read the agreement before they signed.
Yes. So people come here and do what they want to do. And when you go and report, the appropriate authorities look the other way. Do you understand? So there is complicity from the top down. And it should not be so. Why would you bring money that can kill your people, that can finish up your people? Does it make any sense?
But the question is, do we even bring in the money?
Do we even bring in the money?
We're talking about foreign direct investment.
Foreign direct, by the time it
comes in, they're trying to invest in areas where they can take back their money as well.
With their briefcase.
Absolutely.
In fact, 24 hours is too long for them. They roll up the carpet and they're gone. So why would we do this to our people? Wiping off, putting in jeopardy capacity to procreate. Why would you do that to your young generation? Why would you do that?
Indeed, it's a major concern there. You mentioned foreign direct investment. Let me bring that to Mr. Ilias now. Foreign direct investment is key. We need it to develop our economy. But should it come at the cost to our people? Let's even look at areas where foreign direct investment is coming. We're talking about mining. When these people comes in, they use our same population, same young people to do the mining. It cut across other sectors. We know some of these companies that are actually coming in with these issues. We know most of them from the Asians. Coming in with their system that in a way does not really favor our people. But we find it difficult to speak to them, like he rightly said. When there are issues, the authority that are supposed to take action look the other way.
Right. I think the major problem is that while we are signing the memorandum of understanding, we are supposed to look at the conditionalities. Let me give you a good example. A particular media house in Nigeria tried to invest in a particular country, even in Africa, one of the best economies in Africa. By the time they got there, the labor law there made them to change. In fact, they left there and go to UK, right? Because of the labor law. But in Nigeria today, everything actually goes. There is no really, modus of going through the modus operandi of what we're actually doing. In fact, I can tell you, most of those experts that they said they know technical know-how. By the time they come into Nigeria, Nigerians still tend to guide them, teach them about all they are doing.
Exactly.
And that's why there's a serious gap that we must actually make sure to, close those things and said you must not casualize. You must not employ people beyond 3 months before you give them employment. We must come with our own terms as well. Not that we'll be in a rush of getting. And what is even foreign direct investment? Most foreign direct investment we have, we are still tied down to the way they repatriate their money. So all we could benefit from them should have been that technical know-how, right? When you come with your expertise. You must have transferred the knowledge to an extent to an indigenous person who will take over. The issue of the oil company that was that is on the front burner. It is crystal clear that all what they are doing, a Nigerian can do, because we have Nigerian in Shell, we have Nigerian in Egypt, and they are doing the same work, not that the one they are doing. So I think the major problem is that we don't read those terms and conditions appropriately. So they will now give us excuse. I've just also got to know that they said even some people from Asia bring some of their people that are even in in prisons down to Nigeria to actually work. Most of them cannot even speak our language, don't know a lot of those jobs. They will still take our people. In fact, you could see where I even tell you where I actually work. They said work. You see that the level of casualization is appalling. And most industrial states actually have it more. Places like Lagos, Kano,
Ogun State,
Port Harcourt, those people, even in
Abuja, some companies around Ogun State, and exactly. I could tell that.
So there are much more there, and I can tell you, poverty is also adding to it. When you don't have what to eat, anything that is available, you just have to do it. Because imagine when you saw your colleague losing limb, and you are so confident to continue the work. And at the end of the day, they said it happens maybe once in a week. I said maybe once. What do you mean by you mean once? And I ask, I hope I cannot be transferred to that area. He said once you resume work, they push you to anywhere they want. I said, wow, this is where the problem actually starts from. And Nigerians don't actually complain when they think they are surviving until the wars happen to Nigerians.
Indeed, and that is a major concern. You wanted to say something?
Yes.
Comrade?
Yeah, I want to add to what my brother here has said. He's made a very elaborate point here that our workers are not protected. The work conditions are terrible. No protection, no nothing. Their procreative health in jeopardy, and all of that. We'll say that. But there is something else again we do not do. When the Western companies went to China in the early 70s and some still go, the Chinese made it a state policy to understudy them. So that even if they left,
the technology will remain.
In fact, even the factory will remain. And the Chinese took off from there. There has been no conscious state policy for us to understudy these people when they come, their shops, so that even when they pull out, we can continue. In fact, what we witness is the demarketing of the Nigerian expertise. We lower our own sense of self-esteem. What a Nigerian can do, if you are in a position of authority, you rather give it to a foreigner to do.
Even with low capacity.
With low capacity. And yet we have wonderful engineers. We have geniuses in other fields of endeavor. Why can't we, for goodness sake, build a national vision that could lead to a homegrown technology? Now let me tell you the greatest tragedy of it all. For years, our 4 refineries could not mine a liter of fuel. Our young guys in the Niger Delta, meanwhile, we're mining, we're refining.
What we call illegal refineries.
Yeah, they were doing artisanal, whatever. Instead of harnessing them, bringing them together, give them resources, supervision, improve on what they are doing. Instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, bring them together and let them move. We have been bombarding them. We turn loose on them, our security forces. When we ask questions, oftentimes they say they're polluting the environment. As if the oil majors do not pollute the environment.
Absolutely.
They even do more.
An industrial manner.
So, so this is the disgusting thing, that we have a national leadership that has no clue about how to lift this country on this basic idea of industrialization. You see, by the time you challenge our boys under supervision, you see the difference.
Indeed. There's an area I want us to look at quickly before we go, the sharp practices in the system. We talked about the authorities looking away earlier, and he also talked about we not harnessing the technical know-how of our local contractors. I had a conversation with someone before who told me that the best way, the easiest way to get contract in government establishment, go and get a white man, whether he is good or not, just buy him a suit, give him a briefcase, and of course go with him to any contractor, any government offices, call him an expert, and of course you get the contract. He alluded to that already. Is it how do we address the sharp practices, the corruption in the system that is fueling all of this? Because some of these companies in a way are also maybe our security agencies and maybe other regulators are complicit.
Right. I think we'll take that back to Bureau of Public Procurement, because there's a percentage that said it must be local, percentage that give room for international, and that's where we must have to reduce that. We call it. There's a particular certificate they will give you that will allow you to bring such, certificate of no objection. Now, if we can actually exercise as it were, and there is no corruption, Nigeria would have grown up to now. Look at where we find ourselves. Recall, early last year, most of the pharmaceutical company left Nigeria, and the drugs we usually, the medicine or the medication will go for that. In fact, let me use inhaler. That we usually bought at 2,500. It's skyrocketed to 10,000. It's because we lack what is called import substitution. What is there for you to allow our own manufacturing sector to actually go? And that's why some of us are looking at African free trade, free continental trade agreements. That if you sign this thing holistically, you may end up taking Nigeria for a dumping ground, and infant industry will not go. Why not say shoe, don't bring it to Nigeria, clothing, don't bring it to Nigeria. By the time you say no, these 5-10 things, let us produce it locally.
Exactly.
We would have actually, our textile industry would have come up, everything would have. So we don't allow it to be a dumping ground. That's give room for that loss in job. So technically, you are even taking the job away from us. So by the time they are coming, and there are some other companies too that they will have their finished goods abroad. They will just come to Nigeria and add something, and it become consumable. We also have it. So those sharp practices can only be controlled by our Bureau of Public Procurement. So anything that is going out from Nigerian, from Nigeria as a country, you will say if it is at this level, it must be local contractor, and everything must be local, and especially the CEO, the board must be in Nigeria. I think that would have
worked indeed. As we wrap up, let me give a comrade the last chance now. If time permits, of course, I'll take your closing, Mr. Ilias. You have a whole lot to do as a labor union leader. Of course, the federal government has repeatedly, telling many companies, including banks and oil companies, to convert contract staff to full-time employees. But in terms of compliance, we see low level. If in some areas is completely ignored, many of them not obey the federal government directive. Aren't you worried as a labor leader that companies operating in our environment don't obey directive from our government?
Well, let me say this to you. We are not government. We protest.
You represent the people.
Yes. And we have been
Nigerian workers.
Yes, we have been doing our bit. In fact, if we had slept on duty, you would have witnessed more horrible things. When we move into a crime scene, it will shock you to know that the first line of confrontation is not even the company. It's our own security agencies, their personnel, who confront us, who tear gas us, who arrest people and dump them, whatever. on frivolous charges simply because a company executive has placed a phone call. Now, we have a very pitiful situation. When you have a political elite that is determined to fail.
Is there any political elite that is determined to fail?
I tell you, when you have a political elite that is determined to fail, it's going to be difficult for you to do anything right. And I'm going to explain to you here. He talked about the role that the Bureau of Public Procurement was supposed to do. That is quite true. He forgot to mention immigration. Giving people, prisoners, artisans, and we have more competent hands. So why do you do that? Why do you do that? In fact, do you know that in spite of all your degrees, Yusuf, you go to UK now, want to work, they will moderate you.
Absolutely.
You see, they don't just throw the field open. So you've got to protect these jobs. The few jobs that are available have to be protected.
All right.
And meanwhile, here we are aiding and abetting the seizure, of these jobs.
All right, comrade, let me give Mr. Ilias 30 seconds to give us his closing remark. People are calling for the government to, enforce stricter regulations in this regard. What sort of regulations should we expect from government in 30 seconds?
Right, I think government should go ahead to implement. They have robust policy or should implement. But I also like to talk about labor too. Labor should continue to ensure that people are paid minimum wage is very, very key. Right. Because by minimum wage, you can actually check those things. Then we as Nigerians too, as a workers, labor, let's learn how to speak up.
All right. We must learn how to speak up. We must not die in silence. I must thank you. Aliyu Ilias is an economist. And of course, Comrade Benson Upah is the head of information and publicity at the Nigerian Labour Congress. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
All right. With that is a wrap on this show. Today we'll be back again tomorrow. I am Yusuf Akogu.